first team reps for Tyrod Taylor, plus what's going on with Kenny Golladay, and we revisit a topic that we haven't talked about really in several weeks. All that and more coming up on today's LockedOn Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. I'm Patricia Traina, your host. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day, or if watching on YouTube, your first watch of the day. We have a jam-packed show to discuss. We have basically three different topics I want to cover. We're going to talk about Tyrod Taylor getting some first team reps, which head coach Brian Daboll spoke about. What's going on with Kenny Golladay? And we're going to revisit a topic that we haven't really talked about in, it's been weeks, I would say, but it's something that I think is going to be come up for discussion before too long. And I'll tell you what that topic is as we get to it. That'll be in segment 3 of the show. But first, want to first send out congratulations to the New York Giants, 7 new members of the Ring of Honor, 4 current players who, or I should say 4 players who are still with us, 2 players who have passed, and longtime trainer Ronnie Barnes were part of the 7-member class for the Ring of Honor. And the 4 players that are still with us: Rodney Hampton, running back; Otis Anderson, running back; Joe Morris, running back. You see a theme there. And this guy I'm really happy for, because I know he wanted to get into the Ring of Honor for the longest time, and it would have meant so much to him. And he's finally getting his opportunity. Big old Leonard Marshall is getting in the Ring of Honor. Defensive lineman, a big instrumental player on the 1986 Super Bowl team. Just a sweetheart of a guy. They're all sweethearts of a guy, but Leonard in particular wanted it so bad. So he's going into the Ring of Honor along with Morris, Hampton, and Otis Anderson, who's also a terrific guy. We've had him on the podcast before. And the 2 legacy Giants who unfortunately aren't with us anymore, Kyle Rote and Jimmy Patton, they will be represented by their families. So the Giants will hold their Ring of Honor ceremony on at halftime during the Dallas Cowboys Monday night football game at MetLife Stadium. So it's going to be great. It's going to be juiced up to see those legends on the field and at halftime, and something you probably are not going to want to miss. So I wanted to send my congratulations out to those gentlemen for representing the organization as well as anybody through their respective careers. All right, let's get into today's topic. Topic number 1, and this was the big one. Head coach Brian Daboll mentioned that Tyrod Taylor might get some first team reps. All right. Now, as soon as that came out, right away, you just knew what the headlines were going to be, especially considering that Daniel Jones, the starter, has had ups and downs during training camps, has just been, Daniel's been Daniel. So right away, everybody wanted to know, hey, coach, what's the story here? Does this reflect on Daniel? And Daboll was quick to say, no, it doesn't. And, here's basically a summary of what Daboll said regarding a potential decision. Now, it hasn't been announced. It hasn't been formalized. We don't know when it's coming or if it's coming, but here's what Daboll kind of explained. He said that, a backup quarterback needs to be ready at a moment's notice, because you never know when you're going to be asked to go in. And Daboll, in preparing the team for every possible scenario, apparently is going to spring it on Tyrod Taylor when he least expects it. And he stressed that it's not a reflection of Daniel Jones. And, it's just an opportunity to see how Tyrod Taylor is going to respond. But, here's the thing. I think as much as Daboll was trying to avoid a quarterback controversy. I'm not saying the Giants have one, but here's the thing, I get it that a backup quarterback has to go in on a moment's notice, but backup quarterback also, if the starter's not available for any length of time, has to go through a week of preparation and be prepared to start and play. So I don't know if that's in the cards or if they're just going to, give Tyrod Taylor a series or two with the starters. I'm not sure exactly what the plans are, but, there's so much more involved to, this whole quarterback thing. And we heard from Tyrod Taylor, I think it was last week or it might have been a week before. And Tyrod said, look, I always prepare like I'm going to start, always. Well, yeah, yes and no, because if you're going to start, you obviously take most of the reps with the starting unit. And if you're not going to start, you don't take most of the reps. So there is a little bit of a difference there. Now, what does this mean for Daniel Jones? Again, I don't think it's Daboll trying to send a message to Daniel Jones. I know some of you will disagree, but it's going to be interesting because what happens if Tyrod Taylor does get reps with the first team and looks better than Daniel Jones? Will we have a full-fledged quarterback controversy developing in East Rutherford? Well, that's certainly a possibility. Again, it all depends on how Daboll's planning on handling it. So we are going to actually hear from offensive coordinator Mike Kafka on Thursday. He's going to speak to the media along with the other coordinators. And I'm curious to see what he has to say, if anything, about what the plans are. But certainly an interesting development. The Giants tried to downplay it, but, Daniel Jones has, to be fair to Daniel, he has worked hard at learning this offense and running the offense. But, you watch him go through it and it's just seems like the same problems keep popping up in his game, holding the ball too long, looking indecisive post-snap read. At some point, you got to see the guy take a step forward. And at some point, you've got to say to yourself, is this, the best he's going to be able to give you? I don't know the answer to that. Look, I'm hoping Daniel Jones pulls it together and proves that he could be the franchise quarterback of this team for many years to come. I'm not 100% sold on that just yet. Now, could he change my mind? Absolutely. But right now, excuse me, I'm just not sold on it. And, I get what Daboll's trying to do, but I can't help but wonder if maybe, just maybe, that's going to open up a little can of worms regarding the quarterback situation, especially if Tyrod Taylor ends up outplaying Daniel Jones with the first team offense. So it's really going to depend on how many snaps they give him and what he does with those snaps. It'll be interesting to see. Like I said, Daboll didn't come out and say, oh, I'm definitely giving Tyrod Taylor first team snaps, first quarter, second drive, or anything like that. But I can tell you all eyes are going to be on probably the game, on especially the first half of the offense, which is where I believe the starters are going to get the majority of the snaps in the Sunday's game against the Bengals, who, by the way, are playing their backups. So the field will be even for both Jones and for Tyrod Taylor, as it was, by the way, last week against the Patriots. All right, coming up next, folks, what's up with Kenny Golladay? Well, Kenny Golladay spoke to the media on Tuesday, and we'll recap a little bit, and I'll weigh in with a few thoughts on that. So that's coming up right after this. Hey, business owners, as you gear up for the fall, you need the right people on your team to help make your small business fire on all cylinders. LinkedIn Jobs is here to make it easier to find the people you want to talk to faster and for free. Create a free job posting in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Then add your job and the purple hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring so that your network can help you find the right people to hire. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on the candidates with just the right skills and experience so that you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. Post your job for free right now at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome back, Giant fans, to the Locked On Giants podcast. I am Patricia Traynor, your host. Thank you so much for tuning in. And basically, today's show, we're just talking about, some key topics that came out of camp, the most recent camp practice, which is on Tuesday. Now, as you're watching the show, you're probably seeing the show on Wednesday, most of you. And the Giants are off on Wednesday. There is no media access, no player availabilities, no Zoom call, none of that. But it's never an off day for us here at the Locked On Giants podcast or over on Giants Country, where we're posting all kinds of cool topics, including an article on 3 players who were cut, part of the league's roster cut down from 90 to 85, that might be worth taking a look at. And speaking of, roster cutdowns, for those of you who didn't know, or maybe were too busy, on Tuesday, NFL teams had to cut their rosters from 90 to 85. The Giants were at, I think, 88 at the time. They had to cut 3 guys, and they did. And they cut the 3 guys early enough in the day, which I want to mention real quick. But the 3 guys they cut were Heslop, the defensive back, Austin Prohl, the wide receiver and son of former NFL receiver Ricky Prohl, and the one guy that kind of surprised a lot of us, fullback / tight end / H-back, Jeremiah Hall. Now, that's a guy that kind of surprised me because I thought after Andre Miller suffered that broken wrist that maybe Hall would have a chance at a roster spot, but apparently the coaching staff felt that he's not quite what they're looking for, so they cut him. And it was a surprise amongst a lot of us, once we got the word. Before I get into the Kenny Golladay segment, I just want to talk real quick about the timing. Now, it's interesting. The Giants made the decision to cut these guys before they took the practice field on Tuesday. Now, why is that significant? Well, the Giants are really short-staffed these days because of guys who are injured. And they're so short-staffed, in fact, that they turned Tuesday's practice, which was supposed to be a padded practice, into a non-padded practice. And they only practiced for, I want to say, an hour and 15 minutes instead of 2 hours, which was, I think, on the schedule. It was supposed to be 2 hours. They only went an hour and 15. And they went with, primarily 7-on-7s, didn't see a whole lot of, team stuff. So it was interesting because a lot of people are like, well, if you need the guys to run a practice, why are you cutting them now? And I'll tell you what, I thought the intent behind or the method behind the madness, so to speak, really speaks volumes about, the classy way that Joe Shane and Brian Daboll are trying to run the football operations. Basically, they felt, look, let's do right by the players. Let's, why bring them out here knowing that we're going to cut them and have them risk an injury or anything like that? Let them, start getting on with their lives, maybe start trying to find a new team, get a heads up before, the league starts to flood with all the transactions. So I just thought that was pretty cool on their part. A lot of teams don't do that. Shane and Daboll, they're clearly showing that this is a people first business for them. And, wherever possible, they're going to try to do right by the players while also, while also trying to do what's in the best interest of the organization. So kudos to them. All right, now on to our main segment. What's up with Kenny Golladay? Well, if you've been following the tweets and the practice reports and whatnot, you know that Kenny Golladay, the Giants' $72 million receiver, just hasn't quite looked sharp. I mean, let's put it bluntly here. He hasn't looked good. He hasn't looked consistent. He's had days where, you've gotten a glimpse of what he could be, but a lot of times you watch him and You see drop balls, you see him not making plays, and you say to yourself, what is going on with this guy? And just, a few thoughts, and then I'll talk about something that Golladay said when he spoke to the media on Tuesday. The contract that Golladay got, for what it's worth, I don't want to say it's not his fault. Now, I'm not trying to make excuses for him, but let's be real, folks. The Giants overpaid for Golladay. To spend that kind of money on a guy that was coming off of an injury, that was just lunacy. And that contract is so horrific, folks, that I don't know how they're going to get out of it without having to take a cap hit, a dead money hit. I just don't see any way out of it. I don't see Kenny Golladay finishing that contract. I would not be surprised if Kenny Golladay is not on this roster after this year. So, that contract, look, if somebody comes up to you and says, hey, I'll give you 4 years, $72 million, and, you know that maybe you're not quite worth it, are you going to say no if somebody basically just backs up the Brink truck and offers you that kind of money? So I don't begrudge Golladay for taking that kind of money. I more or less blame that on the previous regime for basically breaking their policy, if you will. They had the year before, they wouldn't touch guys who were coming off injuries. And last year, or I should say, last year, they just totally did everything they said they would never do. And it came back to really haunt them, especially, in this instance. So anyway, you look at Kenny Galladay's game, and the big thing with Golladay is he's always been a body catcher. You don't really see him, of late at any rate, extend for balls that are in his catch radius. And that's a problem. Now, Golladay, spoke to the media, and he said, look, I'm my toughest critic. I always want to catch the balls. I want to do this. I want to do that. Okay, great. But at this point, can you say a leopard's going to change his spots and he's going to suddenly go from being a body catcher to extending his hands out like he should be? The other thing that Golladay mentioned, and this kind of caught my eye or my ear, if you will, so much so that I had to ask for clarification to make sure I was hearing correctly. Golladay made a comment about, guys needing to be really smart, being on the same page, and how, sometimes they're asked to do different things in this offense. So I immediately jumped on that. And I said, well, when you say different things, do you mean things that you haven't done before? Are they asking you to do different roles that maybe you haven't done before? And he said, no, different concepts. So I followed up to get clarification. I said, okay, what do you mean exactly by concepts? And not that I got the best answer, but, because initially I thought, okay, are they asking you to do different kinds of routes that you haven't done before? Are they asking you to do, play the position differently? What exactly is different? Because sometimes when you ask a player to do something a little differently in the new offensive system or defensive system, there's a acclimation period for that player. And remember, Kenny Golladay did not have the spring. He missed the entire spring with a medical issue. So I wondered, I said, look, let me give the guy the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he's being asked to change his technique or something's changed in the role, and maybe he's just not comfortable yet. And he kind of brushed it off and said, no, it's not that. It's just, I could be doing this in one play, and then the next play, I got to put it out of my mind and be doing this at the next play. So, the response is, I wrote an article about it on Giants Country. If you want to check it out, it should be up. But it was an interesting way of him putting things. And, I like to give players the benefit of the doubt as to why maybe they're not performing like they should be. And I had wondered if that was the case, but Kenny just basically said, no, they didn't change my technique. It's just got to be real smart, got to be on the same page, so on and so forth. So listen, take from that what you want. But I just get the feeling after that presser that maybe they're still not on the same page, Golladay and this offense. He talks about how great the offense is and how it excites him and everything like that. But you just don't see it. And, what's that old saying? Actions speak louder than words. So not really sure exactly what's going through Kenny's mind, but the eyes don't lie. And folks, he just, I can't put my finger on it, but we're not seeing the Kenny Golladay that I think the Giants thought they were getting. And will we? Golladay, obviously that's the goal for him. I don't know though if we will see that. I think, as I sit here today recording this podcast, I don't think Kenny Golladay is a Giant this time next year. I would be shocked for more reasons than one. But we'll see. I'm not a fortune teller or forecaster of the future, so we'll see. Maybe I'll be wrong. I hope I am, because that means that Golladay will have balled out. So, all right. Coming up next, we're going to revisit a topic that we haven't really spoken about in several weeks, but we probably should start thinking about. And that topic, well, stick around and I'll tell you what it is. I think you'll want to hear about it coming up after this. Hey, Giant fans. So tell me, how many times has this happened to you? You're hanging out with some friends and putting back a few drinks. A few becomes a few too many. And as the evening comes to an end, people start to head out of the bar or club. You think about calling for a ride. Nah, you live nearby. You can make it home okay. It's no big deal. Well, everybody knows about the risks of driving drunk. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everybody from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads to save lives. So if you think it's okay to drive after having a few drinks, think again, play it safe, and plan ahead to get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the LockedOn Giants podcast. I'm Patricia Traina. Happy to have you with us on this podcast. And we're just cranking right along, rolling right along. Hope you're enjoying the shows this week as we bring you all things New York Giants. Thank you for the feedback. And oh, by the way, thank you to my YouTube subscribers. We are now over 4,000 subscribers. And I think I told you the next benchmark is 5,000 subscribers. So we are well on our way. We're over 4,000 now. And thank you so much to everybody who has liked and subscribed to the channel. If you haven't already done so, you catch us on YouTube, please like and subscribe to the channel, because once we hit 5,000, I'm going to do something for you guys. And I think it's going to be something y'all are going to like. So that's going to be the big thing. No lollipops for me at 5,000, no mugs, no special gifts from Locked On. I'm going to get back to you, my listeners and my viewers. So if you're watching on YouTube, that's how you get the Locked On Giants podcast, please like and subscribe and click that little bell for notifications every time we post a new episode, a short or whatnot. You will be the first to be notified. All right. Now, I mentioned at the top of the show and also before we took our last break that we need to talk about a topic that we haven't really talked about in several weeks. And folks, that topic is the salary cap. Okay. Now, why am I bringing up the salary cap now? Here's the thing. I look at the salary cap, and those of you who don't know, I'm really into the cap. I do a lot of cap work. I do a lot of forecasts and projections and whatnot. And you look at this giant salary cap right now. They have about just a hair under 5 million, I think it is. I think the number's like 4.8, 4.9. And you say to yourself, how are they going to get through this season? All right. Because think about it, folks. They're going to need approximately $3 million for their practice squad players. They've got a bunch of guys who are injured that they're probably going to have to either carry or swap out, because once the 53-man rosters are set and the practice squads are set, now everybody who is on, injured reserve obviously is going to count. Guys who get cut, who had signing bonuses, that's going to count. It's all going to add up. And the Giants just don't have a lot of breathing room. Now, they will get some breathing room if certain moves are made. Like, for example, if Darius Slayton isn't on this roster, they'll get about 2.5 million in cap savings from his contract. But that's not going to be enough. So I started looking at the Giants' cap figures. And really, there's only one way that I think right now they can potentially get themselves out of this jam and kind of give themselves a little breathing room. And then they've got to hope, by the way, that they don't have a rash of injuries where they're going to need more money because, it could get really ugly really quickly. The way they're going to need to get out of this, I think, and this is just my educated guess, folks, they're going to have to redo Leonard Williams. Now, Leonard Williams, I think, is one of the top paid salary cap hits on the Giants. General Manager Joe Schoen has said in the past that he doesn't really like to have to kick the can down the road. In other words, he doesn't want to have to restructure guys to where, he's pushing money into future years, because that's how you get into trouble. That's how the team got into trouble that they're in right now. But I don't think Shane's going to have a choice in this matter right now, because I don't see where they're going to have enough money. So they're going to have to manufacture the money. Leonard Williams is a guy who has produced, I think what they could end up doing, and I will work out the exact numbers, and I'll probably do something over on Giants Country about the same topic with the exact numbers. I think they're going to have to maybe give Leonard Williams an extra year to his current deal in order to absorb some of the money that they're going to have to push forward in order to get some of the relief that they need. And like I said, the Giants better hope that even after they do that, assuming that that's the move that they take, they better hope they don't have a rash of injuries where they got to start swapping guys out and bringing in new guys and stuff like that. Because let me tell you something, this is really bad, this cap situation. I think you all know that already, but things kind of quieted down while we're in training camp because, basically they've been swapping guys out at the bottom of the roster. But folks, if they have any kind of major injury, this is going to be catastrophic for the Giants. And, make no mistake about it, for all the good moves that Joe Schoen has done in the offseason with the draft class, with, getting value free agents and whatnot, can you imagine what this man's going to be able to do if he had a healthy salary cap? And it's unfortunate if he's going to have to kick money down the road, kick the can down the road, but I don't see any way out of it. And it's a shame. It really is, because you just go back and you look at what they did to get into this mess, and you just sit there and you say, why? Why did you take that approach, Dave? Why? So it's going to be interesting to see. Again, guys are going to get cut. Veterans will be cut. The Giants will recap some of the money. I don't know that it's going to be enough, though, because ideally you want to have a few million. You want to have like 5 to 7 million to get you through the season, just in case you got to swap guys out because of injuries. I'd be, hopefully the Giants will be able to do that. The only way I see them doing it is with Leonard Williams. I would not touch Kenny Galladay's contract, because that contract, the way it's structured as is, if Galladay's not going to be on this team next year, which I don't know if he will or won't be, but if there's a chance he won't be, I wouldn't touch that contract. Just get it off the books once and for all, if that's the direction you're going to go in. And gosh, it's a mess, folks. So I'm going to be curious to see how Shane handles it. But it is a topic that I would not be surprised if they haven't started thinking about, talking about, and something that they're going to have to do sooner or later, with the season rapidly approaching in a few weeks. So we'll see how it plays out. Like I said, fingers crossed that they don't have a rash of injuries, and that all these guys that are currently banged up, there's about 20 of them or so, that they're healthy and ready to go by the start of the season. I think most of them will be. Maybe one or two may not be, or it'll be a close call for one or two, but most of the guys who have been banged up should be good to go. So fingers crossed. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us on today's LockedOn Giants podcast. Be sure to keep it here all week long as we continue to bring you the latest on the New York Giants. I want to thank you for tuning in again, making us your first listen of the day, or if watching on YouTube, your first watch of the day. Until next time, everyone, have a great one. We'll talk to you soon.